this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. And don't forget to check out my website, paradxastrology.com. I can help you with anything. And if you would like exclusive occult videos that I don't post on YouTube, consider joining my Patreon. It also helps to support this channel. And thank you to everyone who subscribed. Okay, let's get into this video. Let's not waste any time. Now, let's talk about the eclipse that's going to be happening on May 5th. You're already feeling the energy of it. I can already see these things manifesting. So let's talk about it, because eclipses are very intense energy. It's a lot more intense than like a full moon is. So we're going to see a lot of these things play out even for months afterwards. Okay, so it's on May 5th and it's going to be visible in Asia, Africa, Australia, Europe, the Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and Antarctica. So where it's visible, we're going to see the most events occur. Now, it's going to affect everybody, but it's going to affect these people the most. The cities that this has to do with, the major cities it will be visible in: New Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata. Sorry if I mispronounce anything. I'm doing my best to learn. This would be the third language that I'm trying to learn. If I mispronounce anything, please forgive me. Paris, Rome, Madrid, Berlin, Moscow, Tokyo, Sydney, Beijing, Dubai, just to name a few. So those are some major cities we'll see the events occurring. It's a lunar eclipse. So we're looking at the moon. Now, this is going to be in Vishakha Nakshatra. In the first house, we're going to have ketu in Shawtee. So we have a lot of energy with ketu and the moon. And remember, this is the year of ketu. So this is really going to be kind of meeting our dharma as well for the year. The moon has to do with females in general. It has to do with water, mental worries, the public, the worries of the public, mind of the public. And K2 has to do with medicines, cutting off a dissolution. It's also epidemic disorders and inflation, among many other things. It's also spirituality, the other things we'll get into. Vishakha Nakshatra has to do with the fork branch. So this is a point that once we reach this, there are two separate paths to go. I'm going to tell you from looking at the entire chart that which path you go on here will really determine what will happen to you in the future. Remember, the stars tell us a story, but we also have free will, okay? Your will determine what's happening to you. It's forked, two branch, and poison vessel are the words associated with this. It also is a decorated arch or a gateway. This has to do with marriage ceremonies, especially in India. The gateway symbolizing marriage, but this is after the marriage. This is the challenges you must face in the marriage. That's what this represents overall. So having K2 there, very close to the moon, and K2 has to do with a cutting off. So there could be a calling off of marriages. There could also be a dissatisfaction within the marriage. There could be a disinterest within the marriage that ends with a dissolution or a divorce. So that is one of the possibilities. Remember, it depends on your chart. It doesn't mean everyone's getting a divorce. It depends on your chart. We can also see this playing out with celebrities right now. But also remember, K2 is without the ego. So it is pure higher consciousness. So it can also indicate it's also the past. So it can also indicate someone from the past that you end up meeting or you end up marrying or have a connection with. And it could be someone who's very spiritually inclined. It could also be you become spiritually inclined as well. A past life reunion or a spiritual connection. Spontaneous ceremonies in a rush for superficial purposes, just based on the aspects with this and the seventh house. Because we have Saturn in the 8th house, which is transformation and death and rebirth, aspecting Rahu, Jupiter, and Mercury in the 7th, right? So there's some aspects of divorce, because the 8th house is divorce, right? And this is enabling the divorce. So there are some things that are occurring with that. Now, the sun is in Bharani Nakshatra, and this has to do with soulmates. Ketu is also showing us that there's something from the past that we need to let go of. So that could be, because it's in Libra, that could be business, relationships, a friendship as well, in order to regain our balance. In ancient times, this was a gateway that was symbolic of triumph, of triumphing over something. This could be letting go of something in order for you to triumph. There's a lot of letting go that needs to be done before we can accumulate what we want sometimes. It's also reminding us that once we achieve a goal and we have triumph, there's always something new to accomplish. So it's about challenges. There will be challenges. It's also letting go of internal demons in order to transform. It has the disregard of means that are employed. It could show a complete cutting off of someone because of those reasons as well. Pursuing wholesome goals in questionable ways and with creating bad karma as a result. Indra is a character that drowns himself in women and all ego type pleasures. And Indra finds its expression through this nakshatra. So it can symbolize cheating or someone cutting off relationships because they want to go explore more options. It also has to do with deception, and especially with Ketu here, it does indicate there is some deception. There can be. Now, the ruler of this nakshatra is Jupiter, and Jupiter is being aspected by Saturn and Rahu. So the decisions that are being made are not being made with the highest of wisdom at this time. It is not favorable for you to make these decisions, but some of them will be abrupt and have to change and be spontaneous. But it has a strong energy of courage, determination, and capacity to work. So if there is something that is dissolved, then you have this courage to keep going. Or maybe there isn't something of dissolved. Maybe it is a spiritual pursuit because this is ruled by Jupiter and Ketu so close. You will have the action to pursue maybe spiritual pursuits that you weren't ready for before. Or that could be a career and having a business, a spiritual business as well. Anything can be channeled through this, through the higher mind. It can also be the highest expression of art to be channeled through this nakshatra as well. Burning grief, burning desire, and burning passion come from this. People could be acting out of those types of emotions. And with Ketu there, it can create something that's mourned, something that dies. Because of the aspects to the seventh house, when we have the sun, which is leaders, we have Mercury, which is communication in the media, and we have Rahu, which can be very spontaneous and change. These things are all in play right now. This nakshatra also has to do with bars and liquor. Now, that could be a huge financial loss in the bar liquor industry, and we're seeing that happen right now. It's actually also agriculture. Farmers should be conscious of losses and poisons on farmland and sabotage or theft or someone doing this for their own gain. It's going after a goal, it will stop at nothing to get that goal, like it's almost possessed. There is the longing and separation that comes with this. A longing for the unobtainable as well. I've seen this in a lot of clients who have this. A longing for something that is of ego. The ego believes it should be at the highest levels, doing things that are absolutely impossible, that are not even on its own path. It's also qualities like possessiveness, jealousy, and being vindictive. So these can come with some people that maybe you encounter during this time, since it's in Libra, or in business. Some will seek revenge for the past and stop at nothing to get it. So this is going to be in the first pada, which falls into Aries. And that has to do with impulse, new beginnings, aggression, social ambitions. So here, passion and instinct are going to dominate when it comes to the affairs, instead of commitment and depth. The problem with people separating right now is because it was superficial. So a lot of acting out of ego. Some professions will be dissolved and some will come back from the past. So the professions include bartenders, where they sell liquor, bars, that could be clubs as well, but the liquor industry itself, manual laborers, fashion models, actresses, all professions using speech, TV, radio, broadcasters, politicians, this could be podcasters, marching bands, sports people, religious fundamentals, spiritual ideologists, aggregators, soldiers, dancers, critics, criminals, and mafia, immigration officials, policing jobs, prostitution, and military revolutionists. So this is actually very good for warlike activities. There could be a loss due to the war, loss of casualties due to the war, attaining these goals in secretive and underhanded manner. And most of its activities are going to be concealed from all others. So it's good for working towards your goals, especially these are spiritual goals, any kind of K2 goals. This will help you. Being alone, working on goals, this will help you as well. Not good for travel, not good for marriage. There could actually be some losses due to travel. Maybe that's airplanes, maybe it could be any kind of travel. especially with Mercury being retrograde right now and not good for marriage. So the sun is going to be in Bharani, and Bharani is roughly translated into bearings, and the one who bears, who is the one who bears? Which is a lot of the questions that we're asking in 2023, right? And this has to do with the yoni. It has to do with the creative expression of the Shakti energy that's able to create life. So it's the birth and the death process, equivalent to Pluto in Western astrology, which also has to do with sex and the womb, the feminine side, its capacity to receive, to hold, and to nurture. All reproductive organs are seen here. Its transformation, regeneration, and it is seen to present restraint, caution, jealousy. It's secrecy, forbiddance, it's taboo. It is struggle, sacrifice, and maternal love. And being ruled by Yama, the Lord of Death. Yama is the one that people are afraid of. Because it is the Lord of Death, they're afraid of it. But the Lord of Death is also the Lord of Dharma and assigns you to the appropriate new life once you die. And so what we don't want to do is be afraid of that, because to be afraid of Yama is to be afraid of your own actions. You're afraid that you're going to have to get the karma for the actions that you took. So that's you're projecting your fears onto Yama. Best to be friends with the Lord of Death. And once you're friends with the Lord of Death, then you have understanding. So he is a reflection of your own fears. Extreme is one word that sums up this. Extreme and polar opposites. Maturity, naivety, like dark and night, polar opposites, but bring polar opposites together, which ends up being the soulmate. And that's why it has to do with sexuality, it has to do with the soulmate. But with Bharani, it's about the deeper part of the connection. So anything that is superficial won't stay, just like I was talking about in the Moon Nakshatra. It's more about the love and the harmony that will keep this together. So keep that in mind if you are having troubles with people, that the love and the compassion will keep you together. It can also bring a sense of having a double life for some. That's why a lot of people who have these, there are people who are strippers, prostitutes, things like that, because that gives them this kind of double life where you're leading that. So it's also the idea of women is changing in our society. It's going to be in the third pada, and the third pada, this is where there's no sense or limits when it comes to sex and relationships, but it can be a good or a bad thing, depending on how evolved you are as a human being. Now, the professions this has to do with babysitters, nannies, nursery schools, teachers, all professions involving children, because it's a birthing process, amusement, theme parks, children's toy industry, gynecologists, midwives, fertility clinics, morticians, homicide detectives, so there could be some deaths within this. Also, earthquake and volcanic. We should be careful of volcanoes erupting, especially in Hawaii and Polynesian islands. And I'm not saying that's a for sure thing happening. I'm just saying this represents that. There's many other things that I have to look into to say that for sure. This is coal, petroleum industry, surgeons, film, entertainment industry. So all sex industry, veterinarians, firefighters, slaughterhouses. So all of these things are going to be transformed spontaneously. I think we see that too with a lot of bills with children coming out, who can be around children, what is appropriate for children, those things. And so in the seventh house, which corresponds to foreign relations and international disputes, it has to do with war, peace, treaties, alliances, open enemies. This could also be business relationships, mergers, and any kind of agreements. This is also marriage and divorce rates as well. And this could be, in the smallest sense, your own marriage. And it also rules women and the status of women. So the status of women is completely changing is what it's showing. And I'm not going to give my opinion on anything. So I'm not here for opinions. So the status of women is completely changing with Rahu being there, being changed, aspected by the sun, which is the leaders, celebrities, famous people, elections, cabinet ministers. And Rahu is kind of giving more of a selfishness, spontaneousness. So there's positives and negatives to that. It's also being aspected by Mercury, the mass media, journeys, ambassadors, industries, business people. So all of these things are coming together, and these things are changing the definitions of women. It's also involving the ninth house, which is laws and courts. And this is science. and religion. And we have Venus and Mars there. So there is a kind of a love and war happening, pain is love type energy happening there. This will be a little bit up and down. So we could see deaths of leaders and spiritual leaders, which we have already seen. There were some major spiritual leaders that have died in the recent past days and weeks. So to sum up, a lot of women's issues, a lot of transformation that needs to occur. And this also has to do with the liquor industry and TV personalities, podcasters, news and media and communication, since Mercury is in retrograde at this time. So that's just a little bit of what I saw. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.